FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by Simbit World's A Pilot's Life Chapter 2. Check it out now on SimMarket and also on Contrail.
All right, are you ready for the next one? Because we have here Sharon from BlueBird Simulations.
Thank you.
Please help me welcome him to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
Good. It's been an amazing experience so far. So the first time at the Expo.
First time at the Expo?
Yes. It's been amazing to say the least.
That's very good. You had a very, I think one of the most popular announcements, seminars, how you want to call them, yesterday with the...
I've had a lot of good feedback, and most importantly, I showed my wife too, and she's like, "Oh, looks great." So I'm like, great. I got the wife's approval, so that's good.
That's very good. That's all you need, right?
Yeah.
Talking a little bit about BlueBird Simulations itself, the company is not that old yet, and you're relatively new to the flight simulator industry. How did you get started? And following on that, how did you decide for the 757 as your first aircraft at all?
Sure. So there's many of us on the team, over a dozen. I think we've 14, bringing on someone new, so 15 people. I personally have been in flight simulation for 30 years, developing on and off for over 20 years. A couple of people on the team, same thing. They've been around for a long time. And it's funny, I know I've recently heard a rumor that some of our devs used to work for another dev, and that's completely false, guys. I don't know who's spreading this rumor, but that's not true. But some of us have been in the industry a long time, and some of us are newcomers just in the last couple of years. So when I started BlueBird back in 2020, I reached out to some of my old friends and said, "Hey, would you be interested in working on a project?" And I mentioned this in the presentation yesterday. Our first project was actually an Airbus before we decided to can it. And thankfully so, it ended up being
another Airbus.
But when we, as a group, then got together and looked at what aircraft we want to do, we did some research. We wanted to see, well, first, what was under development, what planes did we like, so we had a short list, and we unanimously decided the 7.5 is a no-brainer. And I think that turned out to be a good decision so far. And
I think it's been received very well, at least.
Yes.
And I think we've been lacking a decent 757 for quite some time now, so...
To say the least, yes.
I think that's a very, very correct choice. How do you ensure that, you get all the correct data and make sure that you can... Because you guys are all about accuracy, and I think every announcement that we see from you is all about making sure that everything is as realistic, as accurate as possible. How do you ensure that sort of quality?
So we have a lot of people on the team that are very critical of ourselves, right? So when we make a fix or we do something, we give it to our pilots that are on the team, and they rip it apart, which is fine because we want to make sure that we get this correct. So all the little details, even the color variations, things like that, we're going to get blasted on by the pilots. Like, this is not the right color, change it. Okay, and we'll make the change. In terms of systems, we have a wealth of documentation. I can't reveal all of the stuff that we have, but I'll tell you, it goes way beyond the FCOM and the maintenance manual on the plane. So we have a lot of resources, and of course, again, the team with their knowledge, the pilots, the mechanics, engineers, enthusiasts. We have one of our pilots in the audience here too. That's helping us out. So it really starts with being critical and just objective, making sure that what we have is correct and accurate, and we're honest with ourselves. And of course, we're always welcoming any critical feedback from the community. We'll take free feedback. If we need to fix something, hey, I'll fix it. I don't have an ego. I try not to, at least. So we'll fix it because we want to make this truly an outstanding product. It's our first project, and we really want to make sure we knock it out of the park. Now, having said that, when we started with the 7.5, there was only 4 of us, and we weren't going to be naive. We knew that we can't make a full high-fidelity plane with 4 of us. It would take us 20 years. So that's why we initially said it was going to be a mid-level, and I think you have a question about that later, right?
Yeah, to an extent.
Or you want to talk about it now? Or?
No, go right.
Okay, so yeah, when we announced it originally, we said it was going to be a mid-level complexity, just slightly above the default aircraft, and that was only 4 of us. But we had a massive restructuring last summer. We brought on a lot of new members, a lot of new talent, and that's when we decided to scrap everything. And not everything. Go back. We didn't scrap the model, the textures. We scrapped the code. All of the code we scrapped and started from scratch. And that's really what's enabled us. 10 months ago we had no lines of code, and now we have, I'll just say, into the 6 figures lines of code on the plane and still counting. So it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly some of the feedback that we've seen as well. Is like, like people are like, okay, you do sometimes you have announced like quite like some rebuilds in the past, but then that's all to enhance this realism, make sure that everything is accurate as possible. And I think that's something that people really appreciate as well.
It's really important for us. I mean, I can't stress it enough. It's so important that we make this as accurate and realistic. There's obviously limitations within the sim. I'll say one thing, like for example, weather radar. I know a lot of people have asked us about weather radar. It's something that we can implement, but there's just limitations within the simulator. Well, I'm excited to see if, I don't know any information about FS 2024. I'm as clueless as everybody else on it. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll have some updates on that. We'll see. But we have like a terrain radar that we have, basically a lot of data on the terrain that we have, and we've created a very accurate terrain radar for a terrain map, I should say, for the 7.5 that you can overlay on the navigation display. So.
FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by AnyBuilds. Check out their A300 right now from Microsoft Flight Simulator.
And I suppose after the 7.5, which is still under development, quite a logical choice would indeed be the 7.6, which you've also announced a little while back, and we saw some renders of that yesterday. Yes. What can you tell us about the status of the 7.6?
So the 7.6, again, it's a separate team that's developing it. It doesn't affect the 7.5 whatsoever, but I think it makes sense, right? The code base that we're building for the 7.5 is going to be a solid foundation for the 7.6. And next year, we expect a rapid acceleration of the development of the 7.6. As we, and even by the end of this year, we're going to have some team members, as they finish their duties on the 7.5, move over and help out on the 7.6. So we have, and I mentioned this in the presentation yesterday, we have a ton of data on the 7.6. So much pictures, videos, manuals, again, so many manuals, pilots that are going to help us out. So we're truly optimistic that we can make a very accurate rendition of the 767. The screenshots we showed yesterday are from Blender, and it's, the virtual cockpit we spent a lot of time on because we got 3D scans, we took measurements. I had the 767 all to myself for 4 hours. And I was, it was 90 degrees in there, and it was hot, and I was sweating, but I was taking pictures, recording videos, taking measurements to make sure that we have as much data. And I'll probably be going back again at some point because there's always something that I miss. Even though I have 9,000 pictures, there's going to be that one picture that I'm like, oh, sorry, that I missed. So I'll probably be going back out there again, but we have a lot of data.
So certainly a lot of research that goes into that.
Absolutely, a lot of research.
And with that, also the same level of quality that you're currently aiming for the 7.5.
100%. I mentioned level D. Like people love the level D 760. I loved it back in the day. We want to fill that void. So we want to make a truly accurate rendition of the 767.
That's very good to hear. And at the end of your presentation yesterday, there was a bit of an announcement. We can't really not talk about it.
Sure.
The 7.8, obviously.
Yes. So, and I mentioned this again. I'll reiterate. We weren't really going to announce it until the 7.5 was released, but given that we're at the Expo, we thought it would be a great venue to announce it. We really put a lot of thought to make the announcement. Every plane that we do, we want to make sure that we have the resources. If we announce a plane, we're going to do it and we're going to finish it. Now, I'm not, sugarcoating anything. The 787 is going to take a bit. That's not going to be released in 2026. I'll tell you that right now, okay? So it's going to take a bit, but with the amount of data that we have, and we're still going to collect on the plane, I think it's going to be, again, another fantastic rendition. We have a lot of contacts that are going to help us out unofficially on the plane. So we're very optimistic. But again, that's being handled by a very small separate team. And I spend less than 0.5% of my day, if at all, thinking about the 7.8. When I go back home, Monday, and I wake up on Tuesday morning, I'm putting my 7.5 hat back on, and we're working, nonstop 7 days a week. I'm working full time on this. This is my full time.
I think that's also something that you've reiterated quite a few times to make sure that people don't think that the 7.5 is now not being finished or being forgotten about. The focus right now is on that.
Is the 7.5. There's a process to all of this. again, and looking at, I look at social media, and of course, I think overwhelmingly the response, and especially yesterday, it was a very good response to the 787 announcement. So, I'm happy about that, but at the same time, I know that, I want to reiterate that there's a process to creating these aircrafts, because we don't want to have any downtime. When we finish one plane, we want to make sure we know what the next plane is. So now, our 3 projects, and those are only 3 projects. So the 7.5 is going to be released. We'll focus on 7.6, and then when the 7.6 is basically in late beta, whenever that's going to be, I don't know yet. That's when we really shift the focus into the 787. But again, no worries, it doesn't affect the 7.5. The star of the show is the 7.5.
That is very good to hear. I think we're almost running out of time, but we might still have a little bit of time for some questions from the community. So if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Do we have any idea when the 757 is actually going to release?
That's a great question. So I'll tell you right now, and I'm going to be upfront with you, we're working our butts off to get it out by the end of the year, but I'm not guaranteeing that, because there's so many factors that happen. We're trying to get it in beta testing by, let's say, October, but I'll be able to give better guidance probably in late September or early October if we can make the end of the year. I'm not going to hesitate to push it back into 2025. There's just a lot of moving pieces, but we've made a ton of progress on the plane. Again, 10 months ago, we had no code, and now we're over, again, well into the 6 figures lines of code that we've developed from scratch on this plane. So I'll keep everybody posted, but I don't want to make any guarantees, but that's what we're aiming for.
Got another question up front.
Upon releasing the 757, are you planning to release both the 200 and the 300, or just one variant separately and then release the other one as an expansion?
So the plan right now is all of the passenger variants will be part of the initial purchase. So that's the 200, 300, Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce, and winglet, non-winglet. That's part of the initial release. The cargo version will be an expansion package. The cargo version is going to include updated avionics that we're going to include into the passenger version. You do not need to buy the cargo version to get the updated avionics. That's just something, that's extra things that we have to do. It's going to take a little bit after the release, but we'll include that with the passenger version. But that's kind of our plan right now. But the passenger version, all the variants, the 200, 300, Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney, winglet, non-winglet, are what we're going to include for the price that you pay. That's what's going to be included.
And this will be the last question.
So what is performance going to be like in relation to other popular add-ons like the 737 or A320?
Sure. That's a good question. And I mentioned this yesterday. We created our own custom debugger, and I can't talk too much about it. My programmers will get pissed off at me. But we monitor every system that we create. We monitor how it's impacting performance. And code optimization is extremely important. And I can't emphasize that enough. We are very passionate about optimizing the code, because the 2 things that take up the most frames are the textures and the code. I can make a model with 10 million triangles, and it won't hurt the sim one bit. But if you do bad code, it's going to, hurt the frame rates. But it's running excellent. I'll tell you right now, and we're going to keep it that way. But we're very cognizant of making sure that the code is optimized.
All right, very good. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for now. So, Shervin, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And please get up for BlueBird Simulations.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.